welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of March 18th. We are still operating under the governor's order for suspending open meeting laws by going on Zoom. All members are attending remotely. We are being recorded for rebroadcast, and all votes will be done by roll call. To open the meeting, we'll do a roll call for attendance to show our quorum. Denny.
Here.
Josette.
Yes.
Allie.
Here.
Andrew.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Susan.
Here.
Jeff.
Here.
Lucy.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Doug.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
Lisa.
Here.
Okay. Kathleen is still missing, and myself. We have 13.
13.
Okay. Jim, did you want to make a couple of introductions and announcements first before we get started, or should we jump right into the school?
No, I'm all set to go. I see Superintendent Goff here and members of the school committee. So just a quick overview. Since our meeting, I think it was back maybe on March 4th or something, or March 1st.
Yep.
We've worked through some numbers. Everybody's really come together to try to make this thing work. And I think what we have here is a gap. 300,000 or so was identified. The school department went back and crunched some numbers. They found about 150,000 through circuit breaker reimbursement, 107 through the projected recent retirements, and I found about 78 or so. So that's more than the 300 as discussed. Bridget, do you have any comments?
I'm going to turn it over to Mike. But I just wanted to thank Jim, for his collaboration with this and continuing to work together with the school department. So thanks, Jim.
So Jim, I didn't have, are there any particular questions I could get into why I could give you background if you wanted that, but if there are no particular questions, I'm okay. Okay, great. So I guess we'll open it up, Mark.
Okay. I was just quickly looking at it, where we were, and we put a big cut into what the deficit was. Are we looking forward to possibly being able to cover some of this by actually getting extended day and more kids back on the buses with bus fees to kind of move some of those costs back out to revolving accounts? Are we going to be getting it so it's that close to balancing it out?
So I didn't go to the revolving accounts because I still don't have that level of certainty that I want to take a chance with that. So Mark, I went to two areas that I thought would be more consistent. Attrition we've looked at in the past, and we generally build that in. We built it into the budget initially, and there's some attrition that's come in since then. So I captured that knowing that that's certain going forward. And then the circuit breaker was a product of the state trying to help out, I think, towns, municipalities. The Student Opportunity Act that we thought might be on hold, there actually looks like they're going to vote to put that in place for year one, and that drops the foundation budget on circuit breaker by about $3,000 a student. When you multiply that out, you can see the revenue that increases from that potential there. We also, I just want to mention, we're usually pretty conservative when we budget circuit breaker. We figure 70% reimbursement. The last 2 to 3 years have come in at 75%. So again, we took a leap of faith there. I think we'll be okay in upping that.
Alrighty. I see Allie, then Brian, and then Mark. Allie?
Mark. I just, with this adjustment in budget, I just was more curious of the positions that we discussed the other night, if they were all going to be within the budget, or we are going to make them happen.
That would be a yes, Allie.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. That's awesome to hear. I'm really pleased about that.
Very excited. So thank you.
Is that it, Allie? Okay, Brian?
Through you, Mark. I just have a question. I see the adjustment on the Tri-County appropriation. And I was just curious because I was under the assumption that whatever the number was the number. So if there's ways that that number can be adjusted, how does that happen? And so forth. I'd just like to understand that a little more.
Well, on my end, I picked up the phone and called the superintendent up there and the business manager and asked him, listen, these numbers are a little high on my end. I understand our enrollment's gone up. And he said, good news. We've actually been able to, and I'll get the name of the select board is actually acting on the grant. We got a grant through one of these COVID federal reimbursement funds. Walpole's calculation is about 22,000 or so. And we were able to realize another 20,000 in savings. And I don't have the exact number, but actually the select board has to act on that grant at their meeting next week. So it wasn't much, Brian, but every little bit helped, especially bridging the gap here. So I was glad I went back at them. You know, it's still a big jump, but every little bit helps.
Can you go back a few more times?
I'll try. I'll try. I got to work with the school department. We got to keep the kids in the district here. Stop giving.
Yep.
So thank you. And just to the letter that we had, or the email that Nancy had put in the original packet, how is this budget calculated? And does anybody from Walpole sit on a board or something to help with this, to actually look at the budget, to question it, or do we just get it and that's it?
So this budget's calculated through their school committee. It consists of 2 members from each community. Walpole's representatives are Steve Sullivan and Teddy Hagler. Teddy's been on there for a long time. I've reached out to both of them, and I know, I think Nancy and that school committee is actually in Walpole is appointed by the select board chair, the moderator, and the school committee chair. So that's why we reached out to Nancy, Ben, and Dan and asked them for some help there. So long story short, we have 2 representatives on there.
Okay, perfect. I'm all set. Thank you.
I just want to update our attendance. Kathleen, are you in now?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, Mark.
So I have several questions with regards to the school budget. You had those lists that Ally just confirmed you'll be able to bring on all those positions. So what I'm wondering is, we talked about this, you were 500,000 short, and now we find out that you're going to receive additional circuit breaker money. The retiree positions, are you backfilling those positions or do they go away?
So we were 322 short, just to clarify, Mark, on that. That was a gap that we left you guys with. And actually it was a little less because Jim had a little bit of money around 309, somewhere in that ballpark. But yes, we do replace these individuals, and we budget based on wherever that person who's leaving, how senior they are, how long they've been here. We basically take the difference between where their salary is when they retire versus what a new teacher coming in would be. So we've been budgeting $65,000 for a new teacher, and these teachers are retiring at approximately $100,000, depending on which teacher we're talking about. So
my concern is, are you using one-time savings to fund yearly positions? And now these people come in and your budget is just naturally going to increase because you've assumed these different positions, yet we won't be getting these savings on an annual basis to help pay for them.
So we do reduce our appropriated budget. So I wouldn't say that's one-time money. It's a built-in savings. You are correct that the new people come in at where we budget, and like everyone else within our budget, they increase incrementally year over year. So it is not one time. It wouldn't be money like a prison mitigation money where it comes in and you're not sure if it's going to come in the next year. Attrition is a natural occurring budgetary reduction that we've used forever, even since before I was here. So it is a recurring revenue source.
So how many total employees will there be in the school department then after this?
How many teachers?
Just how many, the Walpole School Department, how many full-time equivalents is it?
That I'm reducing, that you're asking?
No, just in total. How many people work?
So it's not a straightforward answer to that, but I'll try to answer as best I can. We have approximately 300 teachers. We have about 80 to 85, depending on the timing of the year and what's going on within the school department, ESPs. Then we have custodians, we have secretaries, all the support staff. We have day-to-day subs. All that stuff factors into the FTE calculation. So it's for me to nail down an exact number. I'd want to run the numbers out of our software and give you an exact answer to that.
Okay, then Jim, I have a question. So I was under the understanding that basically you take the projected revenues that the town will get, and then there's kind of a 50-50 split between the town and the school committee?
No, not at all.
So it doesn't work that way?
No.
The goal years ago was it 2/3, 1/3? When I think that
So
was 10 years
basically
ago.
what we take is, and I can go over this with you guys at another meeting, but what you have in your booklet, we do have the school town split. What we take is all of our revenue, and we have a set amount of discretionary costs, is what we, non-discretionary costs, which consist of health insurance, trash pickup, retirement, and maybe one or two other items there.
Yeah,
That comes right off the top. That's about 1.7, 1.9 million. And then whatever's left over from that, call it an even 1.8 million. We go 66-34, and that's where it comes out to.
Okay, I'm all set, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, Denny.
Yeah, just Mark, the one thing on your question, and Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the positions some of the positions got moved to the operating budget that had been covered under the revolving accounts before, because the estimates for next year are lower with the not knowing what the receipts are going to be. So the following year, assuming that we return back to normalcy, those positions will move back in under the revolving account. And so any of the new positions hired, it's not one-time money. It's one-time money this year, but we also added a lot of positions that normally wouldn't be in the budget under revolving accounts back into the budget. So it should, in theory, knock wood, once we get back to normal, I'll work out. Is that a fair statement, Mike?
Yeah, that's very accurate. So of the 14 new positions approximately that we added, half of them, 7 of them, are movement from revolvings because they can't sustain it into the operating budget. The other 7 are the additional positions that we had. I do fully anticipate moving some of those positions back in next year. And if I have my way and things go well, I'll move them all back in because that's where they've been for a long time.
And if all goes well with vaccinations and we get to back to normalcy next year, then you can start refunding those revolving accounts. So they'll also be stronger the following year. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. And we are riding on some surplus, counting on surplus that we've been able to build up over the prior years, but that only lasts so long because that is one-time money. In effect.
Yeah. Excellent.
Right. I guess my concern, and just to get back on my soapbox from a couple of meetings ago, it's public safety in the schools. You're 63% of the town's budget, and salaries make up almost 88% of that amount. You keep increasing your costs each year. You're at 5, 6, 7%, depending on the department, and the town's revenues just aren't keeping up. So again, my concern is we have this model that's squeezing the other departments. And now I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Okay. I don't see any other hands raised.
I've got a question about
Right.
the year budget. I was at a recreation committee meeting last night, and I asked a question about revenue and how the loss of extended day had affected the rec department revenue. And I was surprised to hear that the rec department hadn't received any revenue from the schools yet, and I wasn't sure why. Can anybody shed any light on that?
Yeah, so we had to house a program for teachers' kids and staff, and as well as students who were on off cohort. So the child was not attending school, therefore we offered a daycare program. We put that program together in a month to accommodate families and teachers within town, make sure everyone could come back. There was no initial agreement about paying rent. We did talk about it. We considered COVID funding. But part of the reason that we were in there is because we needed to try to accumulate some money to pay for some of the things the costs that we were incurring. Patrick and I and Jim, I think, was involved, and Brendan was involved as well, started talking about rent because I was trying to give them revenue because I know that the rec department was struggling, right?
And Mike, just let me piggyback, and not to cut you off, but we, to get into that, we were able to collect rent. We've actually been able to collect, working with the school department, Bridget, and their after-school program person. We were able to coordinate that and get the COVID funds to actually cover the cost of the lost revenue on the recreation department side. Because as you might expect, Brendan has a lot of programs that he runs out of that. My 7-year-old son was up there a lot. And that was all lost in the fall. And kind of the programs are down even still now. We were able to build back the COVID funds. I think I forget how many thousand per week, but we've encumbered that money. And that's part of the funds that Jody has set aside. So that is eventually going to go back to the recreation department revolving funds. It has not been reimbursed to the recreation department yet. Jody's been sitting on that to ensure that we get that approval from them. We don't want to put it back in and then have to take it back out and show a deficit on COVID. So, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike.
That's fine, Jim. I appreciate the addition.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't see any other hands raised. Let's vote each of the 3 education budgets individually. So I'll entertain a motion on Walpole Public Schools. Moved by Denny. Second by Josette. And that is for the revised number of $49,113,775.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Alrighty. All in favor? Denny?
Yes.
Josette?
Yes.
Allie?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Abstain.
Lucy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And myself as a yes. 13-0-1 for favorable action. Okay. Thank you, school department and school board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, guys.
Mark,
Thank
can I
you
just
all.
ask one question?
Sure.
Do we know the per student cost comparison between the vocational school, the North Fork, and the Walpole school system? I realize they each do different things, but are they in the ballpark with one another, or are they completely off?
I know them off the top of my head. Just for Norfolk County, we only get billed about $2,000 a student. That's not the actual cost per student. We get a discount because we're in Norfolk County, but I know outside of the district, it's like 15 to 20,000. Bill might know better than me.
22,000
22
outside of the county of Presidents.
And that sounds about right compared to Tri-County. I believe it's about $23,000. Nancy, I know you worked with me on that. Does that number sound right? Okay.
It does.
Yeah.
And that is the point where we really do need to work with the 2 school committee members that we have at Tri-County to talk to them about pushing back. I guess I know because previously we've had some of these same conversations. My opinion is that their per pupil expenditure should be fairly close to a regular district, because they don't have to carry the cost of out-of-district special education the way we do. What they say is they have to pay the professional top line electrician and plumber, and those people require more to take the jobs teaching at a Tri-County type school. And they also have additional like facilities expenses because they have the classroom learning and the practical learning. To me, the argument is trade that off against what districts are paying for out of district special education, and we probably should be equal after that. So there is an argument to be made. The thing that Tri-County comes back with is, look at all the other vocational schools, and we charge less and have a more restrictive budget. The other thing that Ted Hegler has said is he argues against the budget, but he's one of about 25 people on the board. So we have to start talking to people in other towns too. But they spend significantly more than we do, Mark.
Thank you.
Alrighty. On to Tri-County's budget.
Thank you very much, you guys. I just want to say thank you from the Walpole Public Schools. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Tri-County for $1,410,000 is recommended by the town administrator. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
That was Denny. Okay, do I have a second?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, Doug.
Josette got in ahead. Okay,
No, do Doug.
do Doug? All right.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, in favor, Denny,
Yes. Sorry.
Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and myself. 1400 for Tri-County budget. Okay. Norfolk Aggie, $60,000 for tuitions.
So moved.
Moved by Denny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Doug won that
Doesn't
one.
matter.
I think that was Jeff.
Wasn't me.
Was it Jeff? Okay.
It was Doug.
Is Doug?
Doug and Brian, they competed.
Okay.
All right. So who was it actually?
Brian can have it.
Doug can go.
Giving it
take
to,
it. Let's just
giving
get,
it to Doug.
Give it to Doug.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. We have a motion and seconded in favor. Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Accepted 1400. Okay. As part of Jim's research and digging around, we're also going to readdress animal control officer. Jim, you want to give us a quick update on that?
Sure. And I know the chief and deputy chief are on here. As you might recall, a few years ago, we made a change to the charter, and technically the animal control officer falls under the police department appointed by the select board. So what we went ahead and did is, obviously, as you may know, John Splain retired this year, well-deserved. And, we've been getting a bargain for the last, I went back, excuse me, to 2010. In 2010, we expended $39,000 in salary in that line. Last year, we expended $62,000. We're going to be hard pressed to find someone available 24/7, 365 to deal with the animals and pick up carcasses and do whatever else John was doing. So what I reached out to actually a few surrounding towns, and Norwood was interested in doing a regional collaboration. So, excuse me, Norwood town manager and a general manager and I have been working together on an intermunicipal agreement to have joint services. Basically, this person will be based in Norwood, be a Norwood town employee. Norwood will have responsibility for OPEB, health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance. We will share the cost, at least in year one, as far as kennels and everything. So overall, what you'll see here is this budget for this year is going from 65,000 expended to a request of, in FY21, 66,000 budgeted, up to 98,000 budgeted is the request at this time. So that's really where we're at. I think it's a good deal for the town. If we had to go out and hire someone on our own, I easily see this. Additionally, before I had this Norwood situation in place, I had 70,000 budgeted for the salary, plus the 10,000 for the permanent part-time, plus the health insurance cost that we really didn't have to cover because the last person wasn't taking that, but I had to budget for it. So in the long run, I think we're making out in this, and we've both agreed this is going to be a 1-year trial with an option for renewal years up to 25 years. So it's nice to see both of the towns collaborating together. Our council's been involved in drafting the agreement. The select board is set to vote on it on Tuesday night. The Norwood general manager reached out to me just an hour ago and said he's going to sign it and send it over on behalf of his board. And he actually asked me if I'd be interested in going for a community compact grant to get funding for year one. And of course I said yes. So there might be a chance we may not get any cost on this one, but that's a big if at this point. So that's kind of where we're at. It is a spike, by about $30,000, but I think it's well worth it just because of the availability. I know the chief and the deputy are on this call. John, do you have any comments you want to add?
Hey, everybody. No, I agree with everything Jim just said. That was very well put. I think as far John Spillane, first of all, was very unique. He was always there, very dependable. We could depend on him 365 days a year, 7 days a week. On weekends and holidays, he was always there for us, and for a very cheap price too. So it would be very difficult to find somebody like John. It has been in the past. It's been a difficult position to retain. As far as operations, having that 24/7, 365-day coverage is very important, especially here in Walpole. Our residents have a high expectation of the animal control officer, making sure that we're there when an animal is struck or if they have any type of a nuisance situation. And it's important to have, I think, somebody dependable in that position. I don't know if we'll find someone like John, because John was very unique. I mean, he was very good. He was always there when we needed him. But I think with sharing these tasks with Norwood, I know it's a little more money, but like I said, there's high expectations for the job, and I think that sharing the expenses and everything would really be a benefit for us and for the town. So,
just from a operational standpoint, will town residents still be able to contact Walpole Police and they'll transfer the call, or how will that happen for Animal Control Service?
Yes. As far as operations, we would still, the animal control officer would fall under the Walpole Police Department's policies and everything in the town of Walpole. And the residents themselves won't notice any difference. They'll still call the number and we'll dispatch the call out and everything. And, like I said, that would be 24/7. It's a little bit changing for us internally for operations, but the average resident won't see any difference.
And I would just add on to that, you'd note in the budget that there's a permanent part-time line item. That was actually Norwood's animal control officer. He and John Spillane used to switch off for both towns informally, and each one would get an amount up to 10,000 each from the town. So Norwood's ACO is going to be the head person of the animal control division. He's actually a Walpole resident. So like John said, we're not going to see a change, I don't expect.
Okay. So Norwood will be responsible, since it's now going to be an animal control department in Norwood, they'll be responsible for all off coverage and stuff when people aren't
Yes.
available. Okay. And when you say it's like a $30,000 increase, but we've been budgeting for health benefits, so it's probably less by about 10,000 of health benefits that we.
It's actually, health insurance is close to $20,000 per employee at this point,
Okay. Ready. Mark?
Jim, I know you probably researched this quite a bit. I'm just wondering, and again, I know nothing about the position. Is it something, given the cost, because I'm imagining the town meeting, $90,000 for the animal control is going to jump out. Is it something that like the Walpole Highway Department could do and someone get, forgive the word, a stipend?
That's a bad word.
Yeah.
Do not use the word stipend.
Yeah, no, or overtime, or, I mean, is that a practical thing to even consider or not even practical?
No, quite honestly, I have researched it a lot. There's actually training that's required. John used to go to a class, I believe it was 2 times a year, once out in Leominster. I forget where the other one was. And you're required to get certification as an ACO within X amount of time if you don't have it initially. So it's more than just going out and picking up carcasses. What it was years ago.
Right,
And,
okay.
and that is all confirmed by the state too. The Mass General Law requires a municipality to have a designated animal control officer and everything. So that's actually, as soon as we do identify who the next ACO will be, I have to actually send all that information into the state, and then any training records and that kind of thing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Susan and Brian.
And so I'm in favor of this. I mean, we're talking about coverage 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So it's not a position for, $96,000 a year. I like the idea. I think regionalization in certain positions makes a lot of sense. And I think this is one of the positions where it does make a lot of sense. I just wanted to say a word about John Spillane. Since I've been involved in town politics, John Spillane has been a force. He was the Veteran Services Officer while he was doing animal control. He talked about retirement from time to time. I think he may have retired from one or both positions, came back. He's just been a real force. And if there was a Congressional Medal of Honor that Walpole could give to a citizen, I think it should go to John Spillane, because for not a lot of money, he has really done yeoman's work for the town. So I hope John enjoys his retirement, and I'm assuming that it's for real this time. And I'm in favor of this because I think it makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Alrighty, Brian.
Similar to Susan, the town was very fortunate to have Mr. Spillane. It was kind of similar to Tom Brady kind of playing at a discount for all those years. So we were lucky.
That's a good analogy, Brian.
After Jim did send the memo, I did do a little research because I saw the big increase as well. And I was able to find Norfolk has an animal control officer, and they pay $74,000 without benefits, and all of the others added into that. Medfield has an animal control officer, and they pay $96,000 without all the benefits added on and all of that. So I think this is a good move. The only question I have, I guess, for Jim, you did say it's only for a 1-year kind of trial deal. And in these deals, how much of an increase sometimes happens year to year,
Well, actually, this position will fall under, it's unique over in Norwood. It's actually a union position. Both of them will be. So they'd be subject to the collective bargaining that Norwood has in place. I'm guessing it, 3 to 4% a year, I'm guessing. And we're actually encouraging other towns to join us. I actually recently, under administration's budget, I think someone did ask me about a $40,000 increase there, and that was for a joint agreement to do an intermunicipal agreement with Norwood and Sharon. Norwood and Sharon had an agreement in place for the last year or two for that green communities. I could foresee this growing into something similar if other towns want to hop on board, even maybe some of the smaller towns, the Medfield or Dovers or something like that. So we could change the game with this one, hopefully.
Okay. Well, I applaud you for looking in and being open-minded to these types of situations, because long-term, I think it is a savings to the town with the benefits and so forth. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I don't see any other questions or comments. So where our individual budgets were voted as part of a bigger package. Jim, do we actually have to reconsider, or can we just vote the revised budget?
I'm comfortable if you just move to reconsider the total public safety line item.
Okay.
And vote the bottom line, which is $12,086,640.
Okay. So first we'll vote to reconsider public safety. Do I have a motion? Denny, seconded by Susan. Get my vote tally back on top here. Okay. Reconsider, Denny and Susan. I gotta go through my list here. Okay. In favor of reconsideration, Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Yes.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and myself. 1400 to reconsider. Okay. And what the town administrator is now proposing is a revised public safety budget.
12,086,640.
Correct.
So moved.
Moved by Susan. Second,
Kathleen seconded.
Kathleen is seconded. Okay. In favor, Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and myself. Okay, approved. Now what's before us is the total budget. And Jim has drafted the article language so that it'll appear in the book as we've moved it. Move to accept the proposed budget, which totals, and furthermore, that the Finance Committee recommends that town meeting vote that the town fix the salaries and compensation of elected officials of the town as provided for under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, for their services for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2021, and that the town vote to appropriate the following sums for the operation of municipal and school departments and incidental expenses of the town for the fiscal year 2022, running from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th of 2022, and that the sum of $100,143,512 be raised from the following sources. Raise and appropriate from taxation, $97,238,678. Ambulance fund, $798,255. Sale of cemetery lots, $10,000. Water enterprise fund, $1,267,407. Sewer enterprise fund, $434,172, and overlay $350,000 for a total of $100,143,512. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Denny.
Second.
Seconded by Brian. That one I saw. Okay. In favor of Article 6 as presented, Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Allie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and myself. Article 6, 1400, favorable action. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Next on the agenda is a quick update on Article 20. I did receive additional questions to be submitted to the petitioner. I am working on drafting a memo to them to him and his associates. They did come back with a conversation that they had with the attorney for PERAC, which is the State Retirement Board administration team. Basically, our town council is correct. Under Massachusetts general law, we have not adopted a home rule petition, a home rule change under our charter to allow Walpole to have its own retirement board. So basically what would have to happen is the town would have to vote to petition the state legislature for home rule petition to allow Walpole to set up its own retirement board. And once that is voted on and accepted by the state and approved by legislation, then we can turn around and start the process of saying, fill the board, and do we want to now move our assets from Norfolk County to some other, or do we just want to manage the assets ourselves? And all through that process, figuring out how much it's going to cost us to do all this administration, and cost benefit analysis would take place at that point. So I don't expect to give the petitioner a chance to come back and try to have us reconsider his article. I am going to leave it up to the town moderator to make the decision at town meeting on a substitute, if he wants to accept a substitute motion. I don't know if the home rule petition would be considered out of scope based on the way the petitioner has submitted his information so far. I'm going to leave that up to town moderator to figure that out at town meeting. But I will send him the detailed list of questions so that at least he can start formulating, and I'll have him get in touch with Dan to figure out if he can do a substitute motion or if he just has to plan for the next cycle. All righty. Any questions on Article 20 and my comments?
So Mark, you're just asking if there are any additional clarifying questions that anyone has that you'll send to them.
Right. Yeah. At this point, I've gotten emails from 3 different people. Several of the questions were the same. It really ties to what's the process and how many other organizations have actually gone the step of, what he wants us to do, change our charter and, set up your own board as opposed to being forced to, or you adopted your own board a long time ago and, nobody moves in. So there's maybe about a dozen or so questions and there were some overlaps. Okay.
Thanks, Susan.
Yep. Susan?
Yeah, through you, to Jim. I'm very curious to know what you think of this citizens petition, whether you think such a move at the end of the day, and maybe a decade to go through this process, whether it's a good idea or not.
Thank you for asking my opinion, because no one has. I think I'm cautious about it. I'm all for saving the taxpayers, the employees, and the town money, but I would like to be methodical about it, and I'd like to go about it and study it. And I think Mark had a great idea. Dick Sakara, I don't know the man. He seems very nice. I know Richard somewhat. I know they have well intentions, but I don't know. I've done some research on this, worked with town council. I know Lisa, our treasurer tax collector, has worked with Norfolk County in the past. She's done some research for me. I think if you're really serious about this, or they're really serious about it also, we need to set aside some money and study it, just like we did with group health insurance about 6 years ago. There was a big push to go for the GIC. The GIC was the best thing known to man. And turns out our employees came to the table and they wanted to negotiate. And we actually came, we are about $10 or $11 million right now in health insurance. I think when we first started this, we were $12 or $13 million, and that was 6 or 7 years ago. We studied that. We hired a consultant to come in, the Cook Company, and they really dug down into it. We worked with the employees. I think this is the route we should take. Since you're asking my opinion, if you really want to dig into it, let's set it. And I'm throwing out this number because that's $100,000 or so. I'm basing that off of what our auditors cost, about $50,000. And I know OPEB's about $50,000 or $60,000 to come in and do an audit. So I'm spitballing at $100,000 on capital budget. program it in there, study it, bring some professionals in here, not just volunteers, and really analyze it and see if it's worth it. You're right. It's going to take some time. It's going to take we have to petition the legislature. We got to form a whole separate municipality. It's just not the town. It's the town of Walpole retirement system. I know a police officer in Walpole sits on the Framingham retirement board, and he's actually helped me a little bit on this thing. It's a separate entity altogether. There's going to be employees who are going to have to be hired. And if you read town council's opinion, you should technically involve the employees. It's a bit of a gray area, but you are taking their retirement and managing it and putting it into a different fund. Do they want to go into a fund that's brand new versus one that's been around for however long, 60, 70 years? Are they comfortable with that? These are all questions I have that I think a consultant, bring them in, they study it for a bit, give a report back to you, back to the select board, and back to Richard and Dick, and then we go from there. I don't think we just go in and say, this is a great idea, we could do it in 30 days. I think that's a bad idea. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just looking at it, the whole process of getting the legislature to approve. I mean, we wouldn't, if it was brought forward to fall town meeting, we wouldn't even be acting on creating a board until the following fall town meeting. And then you still got to go through, like we did with what we attempted to do with the Affordable Housing Trust, was we now have to set up bylaws for this 5-person board. The state has guidelines as to who should be on this board and so forth. Then you got to fill the board, and then you got to basically says, okay, now that you've got the board in place, where do you want your assets? And do the unions have to ratify? Because I mean, like Jim says, you're tinkering with their fringe benefits. Do they have to ratify? And do any of their union contracts stipulate that, they're going to share in this first year savings and all that kind of stuff? So there's a whole lot of stuff that's really got to be laid out. And I don't see it happening quickly. But yeah, Jim's right. We should probably look at, if they want to come back again, do a capital budget appropriation to get professional input on the process and make sure the entire checklist is drawn up so we know exactly what we're getting into.
Pandora's box.
Yeah. Mark.
So again, I concur with what you were saying, and Jim, this is really, it calls for a professional organization to look at this and not 2 or 3 well-meaning townsfolk. I applaud them for bringing it to our attention. What jumped out at me was the reports from the state that basically say, with North Fork, we're paying a higher rate and we're getting less of a return than the state. And it's not just us, there's 19 towns with us. And I have the fundamental question or idea or suggestion to them is having the select board maybe reach out to the other towns and contacting North Fork and basically asking a simple question: why are we paying you more and getting less than if we do go through this arduous procedure and team ourselves up with the state? I mean, it's not just us. So to me, that's the first step. Maybe there's a perfectly good reason that I'm not aware of that says, no, you have to stay with North Fork. But I think the first step is going to them and saying, what's going on here? And then that would drive whether or not we should consider hiring someone to go ahead and look at this thing to pull us out of it. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Let's see. So the only other thing before us is our schedule. We're not scheduled to meet again until Monday, April. Yeah, this is Monday, April 5th, right, Jim?
Yes, Monday, April 5th.
Yeah. And we have several articles on there. There's 2 articles that are being added back to April 5th. It's brought to my attention because Claire always would do this. When we voted on the enterprise funds in Articles 8 and 10, we only voted on the budgets. Since the sewer and water commissioners have not gone through their rate process yet, we don't have the funding sources. And we should have the funding sources hopefully by the April 5th meeting. So we'll be able to vote just the funding sides of those. How much is from retained earnings? How much is from connection fees? How much is on rates?
So Mark, if I could just piggyback on that. I actually drafted a memo today for the sewer and water commissioners to consider, just with the drafted motion for each article.
Okay.
I spitballed at 200,000 in retained earnings for each one. I don't know if the commissioners are going to concur with that. Maybe they'll go up or down with that one, but I'm hoping that on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, they'll vote on the funding sources. And then obviously they'll have to hold their rate hearing, but they usually don't do that till May or June, but at least we'll have the funding sources. They'll vote in favor of it. And then I'll be able to come forward to you and say, here's the funding sources on the 5th.
Alrighty, good. Yeah, so there's no other, Mark, you still get your hand up. You're all set? Okay.
Yes, I'm all set. Sorry, I gotta take my hand down.
Okay. Susan. You're still muted, Susan.
When is the planning board going to have hearings on Articles 17, 18, 19?
They're
So-
meeting tonight.
The meeting.
The
right now.
reason Patrick isn't on this meeting with us is he's covering planning board for me.
Okay, so will they
yeah.
be, those articles be considered by us on the 5th as well?
Yes.
I'm hopeful. There's a bump. The planning board chairman, and I don't mind sharing, he's raised multiple concerns about the South Walpole parking article. I believe it's Article 17. Council has provided an opinion prior to the hearing tonight. And I don't know, the option basically is they need to go back and revise the map because the
abutters list was an issue, I think.
yeah, the spot where they identified the 300-foot area was actually Cindy Hoag's address. It should actually be Water Street right in the center there. So it depends on what happens after tonight, what happens with that one. But the solar overlay, I don't believe there's any issues. Phil Mackey actually stopped in the office earlier this week, and I think that one should go okay. So we should have at least one.
Thank you.
Andrew?
I just wanted to say that I got a text saying that the planning board, as we're meeting, just delayed the, extended the hearing for Article 17. So hopefully it happens. They're meeting again April 1. So if it happens then maybe we have resolution by our meeting on April 5th. But maybe they take this up again later in April. I don't know. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that was what town council had recommended, was that they open the public hearing and then set a date certain to reconvene that public hearing so that notice can be provided to the related abutters and so forth and get them all on board. Yeah. Okay. No other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I saw Denny's hand, and who's my second? Steve's smiling. I'm going to make Steve my second.
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty. All in favor of adjourning? Denny,
Yes.
Josette,
Yes.
Allie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
myself. 14-0-0. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.